Well, hey there, and welcome to Unmistakably You, and happy Wednesday. As per usual, we are here live to talk about things that are hopefully topical to you in your wedding planning. We chat every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock about things that you might be encountering or struggling with. And tonight, it's actually something that we get some questions about. If you have been keeping up with or are planning to, which is a good idea, keep up with our Facebook page or our Instagram, we are going to start a series of Monday, what we used from our toolbox sort of posts, just to let you know what happened at our weddings over the weekend and the things that we used from our day of emergency kits that hopefully you will never need to use at your wedding. But if you have us on hand, you will know that you're covered. So quickly, to just kind of cover the whole concept of a day of emergency kit, it's something that in a perfect world where you have a planner or a coordinator, they are coming with a very well stocked kit, as we always do, to cover all the bases and hopefully help to clear up any emergencies or unforeseen circumstances that happen. And sometimes those solutions come from knowledge, not from tools or supplies, but oftentimes we find ourselves digging into our toolkits to come up with things that you need or that your wedding party or that your guests need. And we do pride ourselves on having a pretty well stocked toolkit on site with us at every wedding. Although, of course, there are always things you wish you had that you can't possibly take with you everywhere. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what's in our toolkit, the things that we have sometimes used that are not in our toolkit that we have had to procure on the spur of the moment. And then we'll finish up by talking about some things that perhaps you should think about having in your day of emergency kit if you don't have the luxury of having a planner on site. So, what is in that toolbox? If you are a past member of a couple that we have been involved in your wedding, you will remember us coming with a black and white rolling, literally toolbox. And that's the best way we've found so far to organize all the stuff that we bring. It is legitimately a toolbox that we buy at Canadian Tire, and it is 3 tiers. Actually, it's kind of 4, and we stock it in categories. So, just a couple of the things that we have in our categories, 4 of them, would be things like medical supplies, attire supplies, mechanical supplies, and health and beauty related supplies. Now, before I dive into those, some of the things that we use legitimately every week that we stock in our toolkits are things like scissors. We actually, most of us carry them on our person in a crossbody bag or a pouch of some kind because we literally use scissors all the time. We use lighters almost every single weekend. So those barbecue lighters, we're not using cigarette lighters because those can result in burns, as Jacqueline can attest. We quite often have need for painkillers almost every week. And again, almost every week we use something from the sewing portion of our kit. So, to break it down a little bit more, like I said, we kind of have things, we have a lot of stuff, but it generally kind of fits into 4 categories. So, we have things that fit into a medical category. So, those would be things like I mentioned, like painkillers. So, we have Tylenol and Advil because some people are sensitive to one or the other or can't take one or the other for different reasons. We find that we use that almost every week. Somebody has a headache or their sciatica is acting up, or for some reason they need to have just a general painkiller on board. We also carry a couple of different stomach medications to deal with those upset tummies that often can result from nerves or maybe a disruption of your normal daily routine. So we have Pepto, we have Tums, and various other things in our kit. We have allergy medication because you never know when someone might get stung by a bee or have an allergic reaction to all of the nature, like we had this past weekend. We also have sort of what I'm going to call physical medical supplies. So those are things like band-aids and blister strips to deal with those, physical manifestations of medical issues or of mechanical issues like shoes that don't fit or that haven't been properly broken in. We also have attire related supplies in our kit, and those would be things like socks. Believe it or not, we come with several pairs of black and gray and navy socks because usually there's one person in the wedding party who kind of thinks those white gym socks work really well with that charcoal tuxedo. So we always have socks with us. We always, always, always come with a sewing kit, and it's not just your basic sewing kit. We have supplies for repairing a hem quickly. We have hooks and eyes because those are notorious for letting go on bridesmaids' dresses. And we have also just adhesive Velcro because you never know when you need to just kind of make a quick fix and you don't have time to sew it. Now, speaking of time to sew and the kits that we have on board, and my earlier comment about the fact that you could never possibly have everything you need, I did a wedding last May where, thank goodness, I was right around the house, right around the corner from my house. The bride actually had her dress stepped on at the photo shoot prior to the reception, and it had literally ripped all the way down the side seam. Now, thank God it was on the side seam because I am absolutely no seamstress, but I was able to run home to my house and grab my sewing machine, and I actually brought my robe with me as well. So I got back to the venue. She stripped out of her dress. She put on her robe. I sat at the table in the back room with my sewing machine and I put her dress back together. So these are the kinds of things that, I mean, clearly I can't possibly just carry my sewing machine in the car with me all the time. We do have basic sewing supplies and mending equipment on board, but you can never possibly anticipate everything despite how hard we try. Part of that attire related kit is also stain removal because red wine and white dresses don't often go well together. There's usually some kind of a dinner or cocktail hour mishap, whether it's with the wedding party or with one of the guests. And so we do carry a pretty extensive stain removal kit. It goes way beyond just your Tide to Go pen. We also have things that I kind of am putting in a mechanical kind of a category. So those would be things like tape. We have 4 or 5 kinds of tape in our kits. And yes, we do use all of them regularly. We have wire, we have basic tools, and probably my favorite thing that I'm going to put in this category are zip ties. It would be just unfathomable to you if you knew every time we needed to use a zip tie to fix something at a wedding. And finally, our health and beauty category is probably the most obvious out of the categories of stuff that you might envision if you were thinking about a day of emergency kit. These are things like oil blotting sheets and hairspray and 3 or 4 different methods of freshening your breath, from those little portable disposable toothbrush jobbies to Listerine strips to mouthwash. We have bug spray, we have sunscreen, which, oh my gosh, is your friend. And so is bug spray, especially this summer. If you're getting married in Southern Ontario, the mosquitoes are a force to be reckoned with. So those are both very important things. We also have lash and nail glue and multiple other things in that category. So, I mean, the benefit to having a coordinator or a planner on site, I mean, goes far, far beyond that emergency kit. But the hope from our perspective is that because everything kind of falls to us and we are the last ditch fixer of all of the problems, we try to have enough things in that emergency kit to solve problems that are resulting from, floral issues or unforeseen decor problems or hair and makeup issues that you can't predict, to climate issues, to attire. All of those things essentially fall to us to try to fix. Now, the hope is that, again, you've got a coordinator on site who can help with that, but also that in a perfect world, you've got a killer florist and there's not going to be any problems with the flowers. You've got a brilliant decorator and nobody's going to have to fix any kind of a decor issue. You've hopefully had phenomenal seamstresses and tailors working on your alterations. And so all of those things are problem free. Ideally, you've got a photographer who has all of the things that they're going to need to be able to do their job, and a DJ who comes well equipped. Ultimately, if you have a quality team of qualified professionals on board, you are going to have to be prepared to fix a whole lot less problems. But I would still recommend absolutely that you have some kind of a day of emergency kit. When it comes down to it, the bare bones that I would require, or that I would suggest that you have, would be things like basic medical supplies. So always some kind of painkiller, and probably an allergy medication on site as well. A beauty touch-up kit. So looking your best is going to probably require some, maybe lipstick for touch-ups after you eat, maybe some blotting pads, maybe some additional, foundation or powder to touch up if there have been some tears after that first look. So some basic beauty supplies. And then I would always have a sewing kit on hand as well, just because those tend to be the most frequent issues that we deal with. Now, I have seen couples spend literally hundreds of dollars on their day of emergency kit. And because you can never predict what could possibly happen, and you can't possibly be prepared for everything that could potentially happen, you can spend a ton of money on stuff that you'll never use and then still not have what you might need depending on what unforeseen circumstances pop up. So my ultimate advice when it comes to your day of emergency kit is, first and foremost, have qualified professionals on board to deal with those issues for you. And then secondly, in your personal emergency kit, which you'll want to have regardless, pack some painkillers, pack some basic beauty supplies and makeup touch up, and pack a sewing kit. Hopefully, this is helpful. If, as always, you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact me and ask. I'm always here via email, amy@unmistakably.you.com, or you can shoot us a message via Facebook or YouTube, depending on where you're watching us. And if you are catching this on the replay, please don't hesitate to pop a comment in and say, hey, you were here and you watched us. And if you have any questions about things that you're experiencing in your wedding planning or topics you want us to cover, shoot those our way as well. Until next week, happy planning.